welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is a special meeting for our proposed zoning amendments. Is this the second public hearing, Sylvia?
This is first.
This is first public hearing, okay. First public hearing. There will be a second, I believe, or
We
not?
don't need
Only
one.
if we
We
make
don't need
substantial
one?
Only
changes.
if we
Make
accept
changes.
changes.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance like we have been in the past. And Scott, would you start, please?
I pledge allegiance to
the
the
flag
flag
of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Scott. We have some minutes in our packet, I believe, or they're old minutes. Nope, they are here
No,
tonight.
all right.
November the 6th was our workshop. And November the 13th. I don't see November the 13th.
I have
It's in
November
there.
13th here.
Is it behind this?
Should be
It's
in
only
the
like a
packet.
two-pager.
It was your short meeting that I'm sorry that I missed, that you finished in record time.
I don't really care. Oh, it's right behind it, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna
They
say,
were
you can
stuck
remind
together.
that.
I have both copies. Okay, we'll begin with the November 6th meeting, if anybody has any.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as outlined.
Second.
There's a motion to accept the minutes from November the 6th as presented.
Can I just have a question? Who did these minutes?
I believe Patty.
And you reviewed them? It was a good job. I thought, given the subject matter, it was a good job.
Yeah, no, I did not review it.
Okay.
I had faith.
All right, any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All in favor, you're voting on all matters tonight because we are missing one. Yes, sir. One elected member. Two elected members. Okay, we'll move on to
What's the two?
No, Phil showed up.
Phil's here.
Did we want to do?
Well, Phil wasn't here when I
I
said
know.
it before.
We just need to
He
get that.
just snuck
So
in.
we're down to one elected member that's not here. Okay,
We did not.
I guess I did not do introductions, but we'll do them right now before we go any farther. Sylvia, please.
Sylvia Von Aulock, standing in for Joanne Duffy, and a shout out to Joanne. Hope you are feeling better.
Philip the Evangelist.
Joshua Douglas, Select Board Rep.
Scott Ozana, Town Engineer.
Tim Redmond.
Colleen Mayu.
Tim Searles.
Barbara Griffin?
And David Pierce.
Thank you all. So return to minutes from November the 13th.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as outlined for November 13th.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to accept the minutes as presented?
There's just a typo for Joshua's name on page one.
That's okay, I don't need it that way.
Jusha. Okay.
No, just pointing it out to whoever's, that Patty will hear that. To correct it.
Excuse me, my cough is getting better. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion.
Abstain, Barbara Griffin.
Ooh,
Going by
I'll
the
make it.
name.
I think I will. So, we have a letter from Southern New Hampshire Planning regarding the Ware subdivision impacts. Is that in our packet, or is that?
It was in
It
our
is right
packet.
there. Okay, so everybody got the letter in their packet regarding that, so. That's,
So, question.
please.
So, Sylvia, there was a Ware asked you to do this,
Yes.
and the commission concurred with a couple of recommendations of Keach Nordstrom in regards to what was going on. So what is the expectation for Goffstown as far as commenting on this regional impact?
I think that Goffstown wants to take a look and see, you know, specifically for the town, if there's concerns regarding traffic impacts or, you know, so this is just,
I think my confusion is, I'm not sure that just because of the timing and people coming and going, I think there was maybe an assumption and not a formal request that Southern New Hampshire Planning would look at it on Goffstown's behalf. And so I'm sort of wondering whether there was not a formal request, because I certainly agree with the recommendations. They don't particularly have to do with Goffstown issues, that's soil maintenance, and there was something in regards to, I think, traffic.
I think the biggest concern was the access.
Right,
Yeah,
and one
it's
of them
traffic.
actually had to do with it wasn't the traffic load, one recommendation had to do with the angle of the road,
Yeah,
the perpendicular versus 60 degrees. So, do you know what the status of this is? Because the traffic study basically appeared to just be okay and without issues, but to tell you the truth, I think we got the traffic study and I couldn't find it, and I don't know what the impact is on Goffstown.
There's
My-
not much of it.
I'm assuming they said that everything stays A, B, or whatever, and I'm assuming that included down at River Road.
Their traffic study did not include intersection analysis. Ours wouldn't require it at this for this size of subdivision either.
Okay,
It basically just looks at the new traffic demand that'll be created. I reviewed that. The way that was done was correct. The one thing I was going to question, and the further I looked into it, is they looked at a traffic counter to the north of the development as opposed to the south.
which is where all the traffic is.
But I looked at the counter that so there's a state website that like just holds a bunch of data, traffic data. And the traffic data that was to the south was from like 1995 or something. So it wouldn't have been a good
Thing to
litmus
use
test anyway. I don't have their traffic study in front of me, but the numbers didn't scare me at all. I don't think it'll be an issue. I actually met with David Tilton from Southern New Hampshire Planning. We met out there, discussed, and we'd say we walked the site. We met at where the driveway would be, and it's like kind of like we were both like, "What are we doing out here?" It's just kind of a small subdivision. Like I said, I don't think there'd be an impact that Goffstown would feel. I don't, based off the.
Well, I thought it was interesting though, because one of the recommendations was to have a meeting with where officials on the construction impact on road quality. And if those roads are, if those trucks are coming out to Parker Station, then why
Yeah,
aren't
I-
we having the same conversation with them?
Well, that's posted now, isn't it? No through trucking?
Yeah, but who knows what, that's just because it,
So we would recommend that they use 114.
yeah, but no through trucking, I think people take from 114 to 114. I don't,
No, the sign is at the Goffstown Town Line in New Boston. New Boston, Goffstown Town Line. And the other sign is at the other end in Goffstown at,
so all the
Wrong
truck
one.
traffic is gonna be going north? I don't believe it.
well, David?
I quite frequently see the heavy tractor trailers
don't
coming
pay
out of the Mount Williams Quarry. They come out at 114 at the intersection where the Sweet Spot Deli is.
That's where they were supposed to be going by standard, but I have observed tractor trailers that do go Parker Station Road, and that's an enforcement action with our police department. It's not a planning issue as far as I'm concerned.
But it is a condition issue in regards to road quality if they're going the other way. Let's say they're coming out by the deli, they come out on Riverdale, they're basically in New Boston.
They're in Ware all the way, because the New Boston line is past the intersection where River Road and
I
Davie.
know where the New Boston Road is. It's up at Parker, at a farm right up the street. It's sort of an odd little blip that comes in and crosses
Right,
the
but
road
if,
there.
if the
So they
traffic,
come
if
out.
the traffic turned right on River Road to go to 114 at that intersection, that would all be Ware Town roads. There would not actually be any New Boston.
I understand that. So do we know where this truck traffic is going?
No, but I think it's an enforcement action for our police department to keep them off the Goffstown roads if they are posted.
Okay.
I mean, but we can make that comment as part of our official comments. We'd like to see the no-through trucking enforced,
Well,
but
no,
it's
the
not, but
official
Ware
com-
doesn't enforce that. Goffstown
The-
does.
It's a planning condition as to the construction, as to, for example, when construction will occur from AM to PM, or what routes will be used in connection with the hauling of excavation or demo or whatever material. That would be a condition of the plan, not enforcement.
And that we would recommend to the town of Ware to make a condition on their approvals?
I think it would be,
Right.
I think it would make sense to at least find out additional information, what's the intent of the contractor. The problem is, this applicant may not be the guy who builds it.
Right.
He may just sell it, right?
But that's still,
So,
but the condition of approval goes with the plan.
yeah, so you could say that, for example, the town of Goffstown be involved in pre-construction meetings, or, you know, something where
Well, or
you
could we make a
you feel
motion,
represented.
or could we make a motion that we concur with the recommendations of Southern New Hampshire Planning to where in their November 21st, 2025, and additionally, we request a condition that the trucking pattern not be from River Road eastbound on to Parker Station Road.
That, I don't know that you can enforce that because these are public roads.
But they're already
all-
posted no through trucking.
Ah, that's different. I'm catching on now. Well, I would think it would be advisable that that this board, along with Scott, that you send your own letter to Ware, so that now you have two letters that are discussing similar issues.
So can the motion be that we concur with the recommendations of the letter say that the Goffstown Planning Board concurs with the recommendation made in the letter of Southern New Hampshire Planning, and additionally believes that a condition should be made, additionally request a condition, given their consideration of impact on the quality of roads in Ware and New Boston, that the trucking not be on Goffstown Parker Station Road.
Which you're saying is posted no trucking.
Correct, but you just heard from, it happens, they use it, and the issue would be that if there's no through trucking, they're talking about having a pre-construction meeting on the quality, so if it's gonna be an issue, then why, and they're gonna use it, then I would be requesting that DPW have a pre-construction meeting on the quality of the road.
Phil?
I guess, listening to this discussion about what we can do and can't do, why is it then that the project for the field with St. A's, Bedford has all the traffic coming through Goffstown? I mean, how did that happen? What is the difference that we get stuck with the traffic going for the field? Bedford doesn't get the traffic, but we have a problem.
Phil, I would
restricting
argue on many points it's a completely different matter, but I
Okay.
will say that when St. A's redid their entrances and some of their construction, there were meetings with DPW on road impact in regards to the quality of the road and what was going to happen at the intersection as far as what was going to be left afterwards. There have been in the past discussions with St. A's on the impact of construction on roads. That
With the select board too.
the issue of access is a whole nother
Okay.
legal bailiwick.
All right. The other question though that I had in the beginning, there was a map that showed a parcel of land at Goffstown that was in here, and the applicant said that they were going to pull it out and they were going to sell it to the golf course. What happened, I haven't seen anything more of that, but my question is, if the golf course doesn't want the piece of property, do we have a piece of property that's landlocked?
Somebody has it,
I mean,
not
it's-
Goffstown.
It's
No,
no
that was the
longer-
Goffstown
yeah.
property.
It's part of the parcel, and it's just, the note on here was that it's to be conveyed or adjusted with an adjacent lot. So if it doesn't get conveyed, then it's still part of the
But it's in
parcel,
Goffstown.
but it's, the access would be
Okay.
through
Okay.
the where. Because it's not a buildable parcel in Goffstown, and they couldn't just subdivide it or split it and leave it. It would need to be conveyed to one of the abutting lots.
Well, the way I interpreted when I read it, the reason why we were being notified was because of that parcel
Yeah,
of Goffstown was in it.
yeah,
And then they stated that they were going to approach the golf course to get rid of it so we wouldn't be involved in it anymore. My point is, what happens if that doesn't happen?
Well, that's why we have this road. It hasn't happened, so we're
If it-
proceeding.
If it doesn't happen, they'll probably include it in part of the open space.
Right,
they had
it'll be
originally
included in
planned.
the
All right,
project.
I'm just bringing it up because they made it sound like that they were gonna take it out, and now we weren't subject to it anymore. So my.
You mean the
what-
regional impact?
Right.
I think, no
I
That's
matter
think-
what
what,
it indicated,
Yeah.
that the only reason we were
Yeah.
notified was because of that parcel that was
Yeah,
in
but
Goffstown parcel.
Even so, when a town is gonna have a subdivision that close to a town line,
Right.
I think we have the right to request.
We would have been notified.
I understand. My point, though, the way I interpreted that, was that if they take it out, then we no longer have it.
so I think that my interpretation is just slightly different, not to belabor, but I think that if they were doing any work or improvements on the piece of land in Goffstown, so if they had drainage going there and they had a detention pond that was on the Goffstown land, then we would have not just development or regional impact to give comment, but then we may have actual approval authority if they're doing some sort of alteration or if they were subdividing or changing the land in Goffstown. So I kind of thought of them just saying they're doing that lot line adjustment to avoid having to come to us for like a signature on a plan, but it's still a development or regional impact, we can still give these comments. I don't know if that's the right interpretation or not.
Want to make sure that it doesn't fall through the cracks.
Yeah, I agree.
Barbara, what was the name of that road that is posted, no traffic again?
Parker Station Road.
Parker Station, thank you.
So Barbara, do you want to send a comment tonight or at a subsequent meeting?
I think, did you make a motion we've been kind of chatting about
I-
what the letter
I
would
wrote-
be?
I sort of thought somebody might have
Okay.
picked up on that,
I'll
but.
second Barbara's motion.
Well, I wrote down Barbara's motion to state that the Goffstown Planning Board concurs with the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission's traffic recommendations and add a condition that all construction traffic generated by this project be denied to Parker Station Road as the road is posted no through trucking as a condition of approval.
Yes.
Does that summarize what you're
That
talking about?
summarizes it. I just request that it just be not the traffic recommendations, just the recommendations of the November 21st correspondence. Patty will get it.
Okay, so I'm going to make that as a motion. Seconded by Colleen. Do I need to reread that for anyone?
No.
Do we know when that's going in front of their planning board?
Well, that's why I want to do it, because I have no idea when it's going.
So,
Probably Christmas Eve.
in addition to the motion, Barbara, do you need to add that you would like our staff to forward that to,
Prepare a letter and forward it to.
and either signed by the chair or by the planning and zoning administrator
Yep.
with official notification? Okay, there's a motion. Everybody understands it, by Barbara, seconded by Colleen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right, so I think we're done with correspondence and action items. We'll return to our public hearing on the proposed 26 zoning amendments. I'm going to ask Sylvia to take over and we are gonna waive the reading of the full verse of everything and just discuss the changes. We've discussed these ad nauseum already. So if we can have brief discussions on them, I am fine with that. Sylvia, the meeting is yours.
Thank you. Number 1, are you in favor of the adoption of Amendment Number 1 to the Goffstown zoning ordinance as proposed by the Planning Board to amend the definition of accessory dwelling units in the zoning glossary as well as in Section 5.2, clarifying the definitions for attached and detached ADUs by allowing detached accessory dwelling units as adopted and mandated by the New Hampshire House Bill 577, etc. The full language is available at the Planning Department.
Does anyone have questions or comments on number 1? So Barbara, should we move these individually as we go through, or would you like to wait and vote on them as a package?
We probably should wait and vote on them as a package, because my comments for one will be germane to all, so we might as well just go through them.
Okay.
Are we gonna be making, and if we're voting on them as a package, are we gonna be
No, we
making
shouldn't vote,
recommendations on them individually?
you can't vote on, you
Yeah.
have to vote on them
Go through them all,
individually.
and then we'll do them individually after
Right.
we've heard them all.
And we'll double that.
There has to be an
Do
individual.
you wanna open the hearing,
Yeah.
go through all of them, and then open the
I'm
hearing?
going to open the public hearing so that we can have comment
Yeah,
on
there's no
each one
reason not
as
to
we
open
go
the
through.
public hearing
Sounds
right
good.
now.
So I'm going to open the public hearing regarding the proposed zoning amendments. If anyone would like to speak on any of these as we come upon them, please notify the chair that you'd like to speak, and you will be recognized for the record. Okay, so number 1, we have nobody has any discussion or issues at this time. Okay. We move on to number 2.
Number 2 also has to do with accessory dwelling units. And in this case, it's to amend the provisions of accessory dwelling units in Section 5.2 and corresponding addition to Section 14.9 non-conforming structures, clarifying ADU provisions and allowing additional flexibility for the homeowner as adopted and mandated by New Hampshire House Bill 577. Again, there is quite a bit of full language available upon request at the Planning Department.
Anybody have any comments or questions on number 2? All right, before I go to number 3, everyone at the table has a written comment from Mr. Buttrick, so I want to make sure everybody knows that that's on the table in front of them. So when he gets up to speak, you have the information in front of you. Number 3, Sylvia.
Number 3, this one is the multifamily allowance in commercially zoned land, and it is by allowing multifamily use on commercially zoned land as adopted and mandated by New Hampshire House Bill 631. And as a note, this change would require approved commercial use on the ground floor except where the planning board grants conditional use permit. Also, this amendment would include amending section 3.11 table of uses, as well as adding a section under 4.4 multifamily dwellings. The amendment also requires adequate infrastructure, roads, water, and sewer be provided. The intent of the amendment is to comply with New Hampshire House Bill 631 while retaining the requirement for commercial use on the ground floor in the commercial zone. Again, full language upon request, and I know there's a lot that Bruce will add now.
Any planning board members have any questions or comments on this? Open the floor to Mr. Buttrick. Could you just do the usual, give us your name for the record? Officially.
Bruce Buttrick, 50 Gorham Pond Road. Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. I sent a letter out this morning. You can disregard that because I've updated it this afternoon. Very similar. Is that the handout? So this is a problematic mandate from the state. And basically, we have to reverse engineer our ordinance to satisfy their mandate.
We only have 4 copies here.
There's
Oh,
more going
there's
that
a little bit
way.
going around. Yeah, I split them in half. So what I did is I started with the state law, their definition of commercial is land zoned for commercial activities as retail and office space. So they narrowed what commercial that they're envisioning is going to obtain. So that's the cover sheet, and it's my page 1, and it's double-sided. That's from the state law, basically defining commercial, but very narrowly. We have 4, maybe 5 commercially identified zones. I'll get into that a little bit. So I did the state requirement, then I dug into our definitions in the glossary. I only found office as a use is defined, and retail. And that's on my page 3, office, as well as my page 4, or I should say out of zoning ordinance. It's very clear with the retail and office space. And my third bullet item, I reviewed our zoning districts for that specific use of retail and office space uses. And basically, I found them in the RSBO-1, RSBO-2, VC, and the CIFZ, as well as the commercial, by standalone by commercial. They all allow commercial use. There was only one that was not specific to retail or office, was the village commercial, the VC. It just indicated, and you can see that on my page 5, correct. I've got a question mark next to it, I believe. I might not have noticed. 2.3.7, and this is a discussion for the board because it's the intent. The intent of the VC districts to preserve village area as a focal point for the personal business, religious civic needs. And then the last sentence in that description of that zone district, mixed residential / non-residential use is also allowed. No mention of retail or office space. So keep that as a hanging, what to do with CV for the board. Do we include it as being part to allow multifamily on commercial uses, or just say there's no retail or office spaces described in that one? Sorry, you can't allow multifamily in that mixed use. So this would be my take, is that if a proposal comes in, they need to comply with 3.7, multiple principal uses on a single lot. It's now mixed use. So we know that ordinance covers, it says yes, non-residential use and multifamily units. It says that basically you're going to go into table 3.11. We know that. Again, I made a note here, my page 7, we don't need to modify 3.7. We address multiple uses. Then we get into the biggie, table 3.11. That's where we really define and break down uses into specific categories. We label them. So my page 8 is the first table that I identified, and it's use A3, multifamily. I believe you need to add conditional use permit under the zone C and the commercial industrial flex zone, CIFC, because they do indicate office space. We do have covered the mixed use with 5.8 as a supplemental use. So we're good in that, but I think you need to add in a conditional use on those 2 zones when it's multifamily being proposed. My next table, page 9, we should amend 311 the uses D4 and D5. D4 is small office, not exceeding 2,000, and D5 is general business, typically 2,000 square feet or larger. that's defined as office space, so that has to comply with the state mandate. Both of those uses, I believe, should have, my opinion, conditional use for all these mixed uses. When we're doing that multifamily with a business, commercial use, I really think the conditional use permit should be in both. That's a personal, and I think you address it in some uses, but it's not a blanket requirement. I would add in those two uses the supplemental standard of 5.8, which is the mixed use and allowing the conditional use permit. So I think our notice says that we're modifying table 311, we're still covered with the notice. We're just digging into the weeds tonight of what. So I don't think we really need to change your description. I could be wrong, but, because we're in table 311. And we did notify the public we're modifying table 311.
I don't want to interrupt Bruce, but I've got a
Go ahead.
question.
Sure.
So, and if I'm looking at my phone, it's because I'm looking at the House bill and trying to make sure that I am, so the legislation requires that we have to allow multifamily dwelling in commercial districts, and I appreciate you digging in to, you know, the commercial districts and where, but, so we already though allow multifamily dwelling in the RSBO 1 and RSBO 2. So that's already permitted by conditional use permit, so.
And
just-
that's not a commercial district.
Yeah, and it's not, so, but I get that, but they're saying a commercial district is anything that has office and retail.
I disagree
But,
completely.
but I think we already allow it in those districts. Our amendment is to allow it in the commercial district. The one zoning district we're missing, I think the village commercial is not, as you said, there's sort of a, oh, is this really office retail? I think that we can make an argument that we don't think it meets the way that the state defined commercial.
We allow it by conditional use permit right now, according to this table, in the VC.
Yes, I think
In the
we're more
VC, so
generous.
we're, and,
Which
but then,
311,
and then the other one being the commercial industrial flex
Page
zone.
11, that's
To me,
Page,
yes, that
yeah,
allows
multifamily.
commercial and retail and office uses, but it also is a commercial industrial flex zone. So I think that where there's industrial zoning, being that the state didn't clearly say, I think that there is a real distinction there where we have industrial zone property, that we should not be adding residential uses in industrial zone neighborhoods. And I think that some of your other comments in, like, going through the uses, like the in hotel, motel, if we need to be adding some of, so like the E1 and E3, the F1 and F4, I don't see that there's any need for us to change what we allow for those other standards or those other uses. We don't need to amend how we allow, you know, for example, F1, the sale of goods with no outdoor storage. What they said in the legislature was you must allow in that zone multifamily housing. So we're doing that with this change. I think that there's a lot of questions though, and I think you bring up some good points that as we dig into this, we may need to make some changes over the course of the year. I wouldn't be comfortable making changes, even with this hearing and another public hearing, if we said, oh, hey, let's look at this and there's some changes to make, I wouldn't be comfortable making these substantial changes to try and get it on the warrant for March, because we basically have just one more public hearing. We could add to the schedule to do that. But I do think you raised some good points that show that there's a lot of confusion in how the legislature passed this and how municipalities are supposed to implement it. So I guess maybe we could look for some guidance from the New Hampshire Municipal Association or others over the next year, but I don't want to open us up too much by kind of rushing to insert and make some changes without having the benefit of like fully vetting it. It feels like we spend like months working on zoning. I don't want to rush it because I mean, from this morning to this afternoon, you found more stuff that raises more questions. So I don't want to have us, I'm not saying it to like you know, kick the can, but I don't wanna rush into making changes.
Plus, we have till July 1st, I believe, of 2026.
Oh, so that's good.
So it gives us some
a
time to
little
really
time.
polish it up if we want to go forward, which I agree.
Yeah,
I definitely agree.
yeah.
I do want to comment on the CIFZ zone. In our description, that's residential use is not allowed.
Yeah.
So we need to strike that because we are being mandated to allow it if we are allowing in the CIFZ zone.
Well, except that I think Colleen pointed out she has a slightly different interpretation of whether it would apply to CIFC at all.
And I look at it, that's like the big office park, 3-story, you know.
No,
Right.
I agree, but
Yeah.
the statute,
Right.
and I have argued before, it's by people who really don't understand planning and are not schooled in it, deals with commercially zoned. So I think our change deals with commercially zoned.
Yeah.
And then I think you're right, we'll see what happens over the next year and deal with it the following year.
So let me ask a question then. If we do a zoning amendment to comply with the statute, can we go back into our tables and charts at any time and change them without a whole redoing of our zoning public hearing? No,
Well, I'm gonna sort of be making an argument about being
Because
able to
Bruce is-
just do stuff without voting on it,
But
so.
Bruce is suggesting adding the conditional use in the commercial and CIFZ districts. If we put the article through without these changes, can we go back and fix them during the course of the year, or does that
No,
require a whole
zoning
new
amendment.
zoning amendment?
Whole new
No, it's
Okay.
for next year's zoning amendments, and
Okay.
that was Bruce's point, that's 2026, so.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
and looking at it from a different light, if I'm on the zoning board, we don't want to do an interpretation of something that's muddy, I prefer something that's clear
Yeah.
with what the board's intent was to do.
I don't think we have
for
enough
our
time to
details.
clear the water, though, in 2 meetings.
Well, I know,
You wanna get,
Half
you know,
year.
397 people from Concord down here to explain to us what the intent was?
that won't clear it up.
Yeah, you're right.
That won't clear it up. So this is more of a, I guess, a detailed, this is what our end
Yeah.
should look like. It's probably premature to do it tonight as the zoning changes for the warrant coming on 2026. I would agree. I just don't want to have a flaw going forward, and then we're doing another hearing to fix something, and I don't, no.
I think it's something really important that Bruce has pointed out for us to have on the radar and to get a jump on for
Right.
the next
So
round. of
Sylvia,
zoning
you can
amendments.
open a file for zoning amendments 2027.
Joanne will love to see it.
So Bruce, I appreciate the work you put into all this, but are you in favor of the number 3 as it is presently written?
I think it does work. I believe it does work.
So if we can, I won't say table, but not act on your list of suggestions this evening as part of our public hearing, the zoning article itself is what I'd like to clarify, that you either concur with it or you don't concur with it, because the language tonight in the article is what we need to work on.
Okay, I just want to be clear on my page, the mixed use. When I mentioned the section of the supplemental use is 5.8. Let me
What
see.
page? What page?
Yes, I'm going to try to find it. My page 12. That, and again, it's really because of the defined commercial uses from the state, and that's what I keep harping on, is makes it difficult going through our, what did I say, page 12? Yeah,
You did say 12.
I'm wrong.
No way.
I am. It's 13.
It's
Page
13,
13.
okay.
13.
It's studied. Then that's the mixed-use development. It starts out 5.8.1 in the C and VC districts. Those are districts where applying multifamily over the commercial. If not, because we do have three other zones that are identified as commercial. And that's all I want, the direction from the board to say, yes, these are the 2 zones, these are the 3 districts, these are the 5 districts, should be addressed in that. We didn't notice that zoning section being modified, and you notice, if you go forward. Otherwise, we're only allowing the multifamily in C and VC districts.
I believe
Right.
it's only in C. I believe,
Yeah.
I believe we only, I think,
Did we
I
get
mean,
one now?
without having a little Joanne on my shoulder, I believe the intent was strictly what was,
A broad brush commercial.
was written, that commercially zoned land. So that's why I think it was applied just to the C, but
So I'm just indicating now, if we do have to change 5.8, we're going to have another hearing too, since it wasn't noticed in the...
Next year.
Next year.
Yeah, but
It will not be this year because we missed our notification deadlines.
Well, no, we could take it
You
as an
could.
amendment to something that we're talking about now as being a material change, because anything he's talking about, as far as I'm concerned, would be a material change. But I think what you just heard Colleen go through was there might be a difference of opinion as to what it really applies to, and it really requires a further look. And Bruce pointed out that some of this isn't until effective 2020,
July of 26,
so.
I believe, July 1st.
You know, and there's gonna be a lot of activity on all of these in the
Yeah.
upcoming year, I'm pretty sure.
I think so too. I mean, I do think it's helpful to have these different district definitions, and as I'm reading them, they're all a bit different. The intent is a bit different, like the village, the VC, I mean, even there, commercial, residential, civic, recreational. I mean, so civic and recreational aren't mentioned in the new
Right.
law. With the industrial isn't mentioned in the new law. So I think there are enough nuances here that as this gets debated over the next year, all over the state, I think the arm wrestling will continue. And I think the fact that this board with good intent has done just the commercial is enough for now.
I think you could say you're covered because you do mention House Bill 631. So you kind of grab that and say, hey, by reference,
Yeah,
we're hanging on to that.
but this is really helpful for when you all are here next year and I will be retired.
You hope.
I'll tell you, I'm retired and this is what you wind up doing.
Yeah, we're gonna be consulting with her on landscaping.
All right.
Yeah.
thanks, Bruce.
So
Thank you, Bruce.
I would
Yeah,
like
thank
to
you.
say thank you to Bruce for his comments
I'm going
and
to say good luck.
ask if there are any questions with the language as presented in amendment number 3 that has been, will be put forward on the ballot.
No.
Okay, Sylvia, number 4, please.
Number 4 is what you see is what you get, no additional language. This is let's see, adoption of the amendment number 4. As proposed by the planning board by amending section 7.2.5, table of off-street parking, and section 7.2.5, table of off-street parking requirements by requiring 1 residential parking space per unit and removing all requirements for guest parking as adopted and mandated by Senate Bill 284. Also adding ADU, this was something discussed here, adding ADU to the studio apartment category in table 7.2.5, which also will have the requirement of 1 space per unit. Simple as that.
That was just fixing something that needed to go in.
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions or comments on number 4 from board or from our esteemed guests in the audience? Please move on to number 5, Sylvia.
Number 5, by amending accessory dwelling unit provisions, section 5.2.1, by increasing the square footage allowance of an accessory dwelling unit from 800 square feet of gross floor area to 950 square feet of gross floor area as allowed by House Bill 577. This is not a mandated. This is the first one that is not mandated, to be clear.
This is something we're doing as a town.
Yeah, and I believe the discussion even started a year ago, and now it's been brought back.
Well, I think that's a good number, because if I read the Union Leader yesterday, and the Milfords is proposing their zoning articles, they want to limit ADUs to 1,800 square feet.
Oh,
Question.
like a whole house.
Yeah.
that's
Bigger than my house. Go
that's
ahead,
large.
950 is actually bigger than my first house. So isn't the reality that we're doing this because the ZBA is getting a lot of requests to
Yeah,
to
To
vary it,
increase.
to increase the amount. So, okay, just so I'm clear that that's what it's for. What we're really doing is accommodating a request that we have in our zoning laws that say you need to get special permission to do stuff.
well, as
That
it-
when too many people ask for special permission, we change laws so you don't have to ask for special permission.
but what's going to happen next? They're going to come in and ask for 1,100 because 950 is not big enough for them?
What do you
1250.
think is gonna happen?
Well,
Of course it is. Of course it is.
That was my point.
So maybe we ought to discuss striking this from the whole article. Get rid of it and stick to our 800 guns.
Well, it's 10 by 15 space. So when you think of it that way, it's not a lot, but
That's an extra room.
if it takes a little bit of the pressure off ZBA, I think that's a good thing.
It's only because they want more than 800. Now, when we put it in at 950, as members have stated, they're going to be back asking for 1,100 on a variance.
The purpose of an ADU, which they, in a devious way, continue to describe it as,
Yes,
because the reality is the state has basically created a dwelling unit, and they
Rental property.
continue to call it an ADU. The intent of that, for those of us who have been around, when this all started, was supposed to be something accessible from the main house to allow people in the main house to have another family member, a caretaker, or somebody else in the residence with them.
and unfortunately, that's how they're still disguising it in the newspapers and all the discussions they're having.
Right, and the reality is that simply did not generate, in my opinion, the amount of business and activity that they thought it would, and we now have what has been approved as essentially a completely separate and can be attached dwelling unit. So,
Or detached.
Can you put ADUs on your duplex to basically make it a quadplex?
I think that would be a gray area that we haven't even discussed.
Wouldn't bring it up.
It's really for a single-family
it's generally,
dwelling.
but
Oh,
now
okay,
it says,
okay.
but now it says in any zone that allows residential,
Right.
you need to approve an ADU. And since it doesn't have to be attached anymore, I would suspect there will be people that argue the multifamily can indeed have
An accessory dwelling.
have an accessory dwelling unit. So, you know, I don't,
Shouldn't have brought it up.
Yeah, now you got Bruce back up there.
so, you know, I don't know what we're doing with this. I know what we're doing. We're avoiding ZBA applications for ADUs, which are larger than 800 square feet, in the hopes that this magic number that they've come up with, which as Sylvia points out, is a room, 10 by 15.
How many of these are we getting a year?
How many variance requests would you say you got in the past year, Bruce?
I would say they hit every other meeting-ish, if I'm pretty
So maybe
involved.
6.
And do they still require hardship for an approval?
Let me just go and identify myself. Bruce Buttrick, if I could address the board. I think the intent here is good. I don't think it goes far enough. Because practically, to satisfy a second unit in the basement, it should probably be the full basement, because otherwise they come in, if it's a 1,200 square foot basement, they have to come in for a variance, because it's over the 800 that we currently allow. Now we're gonna bump it up to 950, they want 1,200. That, you know, practically they're gonna fit up the basement, so they're gonna have to come in for a variance. It's like, well, why don't we just state that the ADU can be the footprint of the basement, I guess. I know it's
Well,
generous.
That's only one application of the ADU, because they can add on to their house, and
Right.
maybe they want to
Correct.
say, well, if you're gonna give me 1,200 in the basement, you should
Then I
give me
want
1,200
1,200 in the
outside.
addition.
I don't
Good
think
point.
that's
Yeah,
a good
that's true.
rationale
I see what
for
you're
that.
saying. But that's what happens, is typically, they come in for a variance because they can't satisfy too small, because they want to have that extra room, and they've got it down in the basement, so
So-
they're asking for the variance.
So the
It's
whole
a never-ending,
utility room.
problem at this point,
Yeah, I mean,
until
it's,
they get to Concord and they repeal it.
No, just call it as it is, it's really a two-family, it's not really my ADU. It's a second dwelling.
I think I'm in the minority at the table right now. I'm okay with 950 square feet, but I also, I think if the chair wants to take a straw poll and if folks aren't comfortable with it and want to strike this, then.
well, do you want to just treat it as a separate,
It should be a separate.
it should be a separate article, and that's not a substantive change. So for purposes of our discussion and voting tonight, why don't we just treat it as number 5?
Well, you either support, so tonight you support or not support
Right.
putting this in front of the voters,
Right.
and letting the voters decide.
Right.
And the voters
That's-
don't decide on a package, they decide on individual.
They decide on individuals.
Right.
So if the town residents think no, they won't vote for it.
So
Town
I
re-
think it should be really a separate, and I know,
It is a separate.
It is a separate article.
Each of these is separate.
no.
Number 5.
Yeah,
It's-
okay, all right.
Can I make a motion to remove this?
No, gonna go through after we go through the public hearing on all of them.
I can tell you that SNHPC has recently worked with New Hampshire Housing and Finance on an ADU case study that, for New Hampshire, and we interviewed people across the state. Very interesting work, and primarily these have been for like an elderly couple is inviting an adult child back. That's so common. Or someone who wants to stay in their house, in order to stay in their house, needs a little more income just because life is expensive, and they've created an ADU. So that's what
A lot of them are happening.
a lot of them are working out
Okay.
in a really good way. And I don't think any town is overrun. It's not hundreds and hundreds. It's more like under 10 happen in a given year. That's what we see. Certain towns, you get a little bit more, and they're really expensive. When you decide to build an ADU, you're talking between $200,000 and $300,000. So you're not just inviting any stranger off the train to come and live in your
Plus
house.
you pay the impact fee.
You're really planning for either a caretaker, your adult child. It is a planned thing. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
There are builders that are building brand-new houses with ADUs in them right now,
Yes,
right
that's.
down the road from your house, Phil, on Montalona.
Yeah.
One's on the crest of the hill on the left.
Yeah.
It's got an ADU built right into it. Brand-new construction.
Yeah.
The red one or the blue?
The second one. The one on the higher ground.
Okay, that's the red.
Anyway,
Yes, I had one.
Okay. Anybody else have, I know, I'm letting the board members speak first. Any more on the board have any questions or comments before I? Please, sir.
I'm Charlie Farley. Regarding the ADU and square footage, one of the comments that I had speaking to a builder and then corresponding the property owner was they were struggling to make an ADU, they called age in place, so they wanted enough room so that in the bathroom, they can wheel a wheelchair in and have an attendant or two. Same thing with showers, and hallways need to be wider. They want 36-inch doors going into bedrooms, so you can go through there and so that just takes extra space, and that's part of what you're all having to kind of tangle with. It's part of the consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody Anybody else have any questions or comments on number?
So just for clarity, the whole reason we're doing the number 5 is that way less people have to come and ask for variance.
Well, that's the basis of it, but
They're still gonna come and ask for it.
they're gonna come and ask for it, but the point is that it's being debated whether the 800 was actually large enough space for someone to actually live in an 800 square foot space. So maybe we're undersized and we just need to amend it to make it more amenable to people to live in.
I think it's undersized based upon what you're expecting, and to Barbara's point, like, my first place I ever moved in was 800 square feet, and it was my wife and myself, we were fine. My kid lives in something smaller than that now.
We're a different generation than what.
760.
He's more like 600 or less, like some of
What
these
was
places.
what was the square footage of my Chevy van?
Yeah, well, I mean, some of us have bigger places, I guess, Tim, but
I
like,
guess when you take out the engine compartment, that's square footage. All right. So any more questions or comments on number 5? Move on to number 6.
All right, this one is to amend the definition of buildable area as follows. That any of the area of a parcel except A, submerged land area, B, wetlands, C, any land within, and it's changed from 50 to 100 feet of wetlands, of at least 2,000 continuous square feet, slopes in excess of no longer 25%, but reduced to 20%, and now specifically utility easements, and F, the area of any proposed public or private streets, rights-of-way, and special flood hazard areas as designated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency in its flood insurance study for the County of Hillsborough, New Hampshire. And I know Colleen can probably speak to this more, but this is sort of in conjunction with all the work done on the open space development, I believe.
Yeah, that's basically it. And cleaning up, so I think that the 50 to 100 feet for the wetland buffer was just a correction to be consistent with the rest of the ordinance. Slopes, reducing it from 25 to 20% was just to recognize that 25 is a very extremely steep slope, so 20% seemed more consistent with what we've seen around the area, and then just that, not just to.
So
be
does
referring
20%
to-
make it more strict or less strict?
It's more strict.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So it reduces what can count as buildable.
Well, that's
area.
counted, okay, thank you.
And then the, instead of just high-tension power line, which is really, you know, what are we defining there? We're saying all utility easements are subtracted from the buildable area.
Well, actually, it's within the utility easement that you can't build in it, so it's almost a moot point.
Yeah, but
It's good to put it in there.
This is for the
It's
For
calculation,
the calculation.
not for the plan.
Calculation.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah, so
So-
it's,
Okay.
yeah.
So when
Okay.
I have to check somebody's yield plan, I have this black and white document that says, no, you can't include that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, now I understand why that's. Okay, any discussion on number 6 from board members or the general public? I don't see any. So let me ask our fearless leader, we have not made any changes to any of the
No, we have
wording? Have we?
We need to do 8.
The-
Seven, I mean.
Number 7. We have one more.
No, it was only 6. Sorry,
so,
my fault.
Open space.
Please, continue with number 7.
All right, number 7, this is the excitement with the open space. So, first of all, moving the section 13.5 open space development from section 13 overlay districts to section 5 supplemental standards, creating a new section 5.25 open space development, and by amending multiple sections under the provisions of RSA 674-16 and 674-21, innovative land use controls, as well as removing section 3.7.2. And there is a lot to this one. There are pages of changes here, and it's all available in the full version. If anyone is on the edge of your seats and want to look at all the changes, but it's a very thorough, was a fantastic job that the Open Space Committee did working on this, and so that's that.
I know I have a bad memory, but have we seen this before tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we've
In
seen it a
its
couple
full
times.
form?
Yeah.
Yes.
At a meeting?
Yes.
I guess I was asleep.
Come on, this is exciting stuff.
No, I appreciate your work, I just think I slept through it.
Could have been when you missed it.
Well, I'm trying to think whether it was at a.
I did miss one meeting.
You missed a meeting, and I'm trying to think if that was the meeting it was at.
Probably was.
Oh, yeah, that could have been.
I know I have a bad memory, but, well, I would remember all this
From
red.
the
Tony went
10,000
over it.
The 10,000 foot level, I can just tell you that the purpose and objectives, and we clarified the purpose and objectives and some of the objective statements of what the intent of the open space district is intending to accomplish. We clarified, I believe we clarified where it's mandatory and where it is not. Open space is optional in zoning districts, where open space development is allowed and where the parent lot is greater than 10 acres. And then we just clarified how the density determination and yield plan are prepared. And I think the most significant change is that changing the minimum open space requirement is a minimum of 50% of the buildable area of the lot to be subdivided. Previously, in some districts, it was 50%, then in R1 and R2, it was 40%. So we've increased it in R1 and R2 to 50%. There will be some forthcoming changes to the development regulations that'll further clarify, but this, I think, just cleans up the zoning ordinance. It looks like a lot, but it's not, in my mind, it's not significant changes, but it's a lot of clarifying changes that make it a little bit easier for staff to hopefully administer.
Now, does cluster zoning fall under open space development?
It would be considered the same thing.
Yeah,
Some
it's-
people
it's
call it
technical.
clusters, some people
Yeah.
call it open space.
Okay, so I apologize for this, it's late to the table. We had a development, and the homeowners themselves were the designated owners or caretakers of the open space.
That was one of the first ones.
That was down on Shirley Hill Road. Joyle was the attorney, it was what was the name of that?
Well, it was-
Corner of Kennedy Hill,
And Shirley Hill.
Shirley Hill. And
Well, it wasn't one of the first ones.
did we have, and then we had another one where people were out in the open space cutting and building sheds and doing another thing out behind Kimberly's house, as I remember. So, do we touch on those types of enforcement in our regulations, or is that another whole world of the open space?
That's what can and cannot be done is addressed more in the development regs, and that's an enforcement issue. One of the things that came to light was sort of, we almost had half of the development reg in the planning ordinance as compared to the development reg section. And David Neiman actually on the committee spent a lot, was David, right, spent a lot of time on the purpose and that kind of thing. So I think your question goes more to the development regs, and enforcement is not really part of the regulations. It's you follow the regulations, and we have a zoning code enforcement officer, and like most places, it's, unless you have somebody out there that's patrolling, it is a function of people bringing it to our attention to go look at.
Now, do we have negative feedback on when people control their own destiny as opposed to when PLC and the rest of them control it? Is it any different? Better,
Well,
one is better than the other?
I'll let Colleen speak to this, because David Neiman would roll in his grave if I spoke to this, which would essentially be his position.
So the zoning ordinance will just require that it be permanently protected open space. In the development regulations, will allow it to be either protected and owned by a homeowners association, by a land trust like the PLC, or, an easement or conservation to
Which
the Conscom.
Which is pretty
to be
much
held
what
by
we
the
have
town, which
right
is
now.
pretty much what we
Right.
have now. And the reason being that if we tried to restrict and say it must be held by a land trust, and they couldn't find, because the PLC is,
They don't want that
they
much.
don't want all this land. So we there was a lot of back and forth discussion on it, and I think that it came down to, and I think Jim Raymond gave some good input on that we can't be overly restrictive in who has ownership and control over the open space, but I think that what we're anticipating is that the development regulations will need to include, clearly if it is by a homeowners association, exactly what is permitted, and we had a lot of discussion about passive recreation versus active recreation or just non-disturbance land, making sure that buffers are marked with buffer placards, and there is gonna be an ongoing enforcement issue, and staff, advise and recognize that it's a challenge that no matter who has ownership, it's an enforcement issue. There's no great way of managing it, but I think with plans that clearly show what's the open space, what are the buffers, with homeowners association documents, that if it is in HOA, showing exactly what they're allowed to do. People don't always read their HOA docs. I don't know, I read mine, but people don't read them, but having buffer placards in the field, people can take them down. There's no great solution, but I think we need to provide the opportunity for different mechanisms of control, and that's done in the development regs.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, from my experience with all of the existing open space developments in town, I have no idea where the private property ends and the open space begins. So if there's a shed in the backyard, I don't know if it's on their property or not. And without those placards or something to,
Which disappear over time.
people, it's not the safest thing to go around somebody's backyard looking for property values sometimes too. So
I mean, I think
my vest kind of gives me away, so people kind of tend to not worry as much when they see us in a vest, but.
we're only gonna find out about those type of encroachments when a neighbor is ticked off at their neighbor and call the town to, deal with an issue.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that's the way it is.
Well, it's unfortunate that the PLC doesn't want to, take care of more land, because
This issue, I was on a land conservancy years ago. This issue we have been walking into this issue as a state for 15 years. Because the manpower to address what we are doing, along with the size of property that land trusts were accumulating in the beginning, guaranteed we were gonna end up with an issue as to how to monitor it. It just did.
do you remember our presentation here at the planning board when one of those groups came in and they put up a chart on the screen that said how it costs $1.30 of every tax dollar for residential, and it costs 15 cents for, open space land, and we want more and more open space land. Now they don't want it, it seems like, so it's kind of,
Well, they can't
kind of
They
a
don't have
kick.
the manpower to keep up with it.
All right, so are we going to have a second meeting?
Not if we vote on them tonight. I don't know that we heard anything that I think the board would be inclined to want to modify any of these proposed articles, so we would be able to.
I think it's kind of late for modifications in the world of modifications.
Well, somebody could have brought something in that we thought we would want to consider.
All right, so, board discussion regarding
So,
moving forward.
so moving forward on.
I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Okay. So to go through these sequentially, I think the preferred order of business would be a motion to place Article 1 on the ballot as recommended.
Do we have to do it article by article?
Yes, we do.
Right.
We have to
You gotta
do them
vote
one
on
at a
each
time.
one.
Then I will second the motion to put it on the ballot.
Okay,
So Barbara, did you make the motion?
I did.
We just have to make a record.
It was just an example. I won't make one again because I'm voting against this.
Okay, well, there's a
Move this
motion,
along.
there's a motion to move Article 1 to the ballot. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This, along with the majority of these articles, are on our warrant because the state has passed legislation requiring us to do certain things. The reality is that these would not have been done by virtue of our perceived need as planning and zoning officials, elected planning persons, nor would this or the other state proposals have been done as a result of recommendations from, for example, the zoning board or other people in town based on what they see a need for. I asked repeatedly, multiple places, as to if the state is requiring this, and this is in fact legislation, what will happen if we don't change our zoning ordinance? And I never got an answer. And in a discussion at this board, it came up that it would be cumbersome, it would be confusing for people. I would suggest to you that Bruce's analysis of the impact of a change shows that any analysis or looking at the zoning ordinance is confusing to anybody to follow through and be consistent. And I cannot support the changes for our community. So I'm going to be voting against this, and I hope other members do also. The reality is also that the members of the community rely heavily on the planning board recommendations on articles. I cannot remember the last time a planning recommendation was defeated, whether it was for or against a particular article. And if we don't recommend it to go on, it won't go on the ballot. So we are doing this because the state is making us do this, not because any of us in the discussion said we thought it was a good change. So I can't vote for it.
So where do we put ourselves legally
I don't know. I
If-
asked
if-
lots of people
if
that question
a-
and nobody would tell me.
if we are challenged on a decision? Does that mean we have to expend town funds to hire a lawyer to go to court to
I don't know
defend
why we
ourselves?
would be challenged on it. The issue is that I think when people come in for a planning application, that this might be, you have a separate packet that says, here are the House bills that are in effect. But I am not going to encourage people to say, yes, they want something, when the reality is, I don't think it is a change we want. It's being forced down our throats. And frankly, the law, and it's sort of been pointed out that the legislation doesn't contemplate all of the impacts it has and all of the things that maybe it should or should not be looking at. They should include in the bills what is supposed to happen, and they don't. There's never been any direction. I mean, this is not the first year that Concord has done this. I will say, until a couple of years ago, when certain lobbying groups got very powerful, these kind of bills were turned down in the House and didn't make it through, but they are now. So
And there's another whole rash coming from what I read
another whole rash
yesterday's
coming.
paper.
And legislators are being judged. I got a 2025 legislative scorecard in the mail today from the Business and Industry Association. And housing was what representatives and senators are being judged on as to whether or not the BIA thinks they're good guys or bad guys. So that they can do what they want, but I'm here as an elected member for Goffstown. And nobody in Goffstown has come forward saying this is a good thing, including the elected representatives who put these bills forward. So I moved it. We need to deal with the business at hand. I'm voting no.
No, we didn't vote yet, so you have to wait a minute.
But just like,
Bill?
Just a follow-up on comment that Barbara had brought up. You would think that when House bills get passed and they become law, and they're gonna go to the town, affect the towns, that every single town is going to have the same changes to their planning or zoning as we're going through now. We do an interpretation with what our zoning laws and what our regs are. And we come up with certain things that we feel we're following the statute. You can go to There are 235 municipalities in the state. And I think there is nothing that is specific. Usually, the point is, usually when you do something, you refer to the statute or something specific into the statutes. It's very simple, and you adopt something. This is vague.
It's meant to be vague, Phil, so it can be interpreted 10 different ways.
Well, that's the point, okay? If the legislature's gonna pass statutes that are gonna go into law, you would think that they would have a certain amount of clarity and that they would have a certain amount of consistency with all the communities, or all the cities and towns in the state. And it just,
In fairness to the state, to the state, Phil, I will just point out that if you look at the summary, it's a little hard to tell. The statutory language actually did include a definition as a unit that is within or physically connected. It did actually include specific language that will be adopted in regards to these. Now, what Bruce's analysis pointed out is how each community makes that change is subject to what their planning board does.
And what is their end goal? To have statewide zoning, and
Yes.
statewide planning. That's
Well-
their end goal.
well, it's taking the local control
That's right.
away from each community, which is what they always tell us when they want something, that this is for local control. Aren't you for local control? Which is what they're taking away from us now.
No.
The only issue that I see, if these are not adopted and we don't have them in the regulations, how much extra work is going to be involved with applicants come that the planning department has to deal with? Is this current staff that we have going to be able to deal with that? I mean, they come in and get on the agenda of the planning board. Is it going to double that time that's required by staff to sift through this stuff for us to be able to interpret and be able to discuss it in a way that makes sense to the applicant, to us, and people that are watching what's going on? Or are they gonna turn off the TV because it makes no sense what we're talking about?
Why wouldn't we just have a supplement that would be handed to it and say, these are state regulations, and if you're applying for an ADU, which is what, I'm just using that because that's primarily what they're talking about, you should read these too. I mean, that's what we tell people now when they come to the counter. Here are the rules, read them. If you have questions, call.
But we can't have contradictory rules in our own regulations with the state rules.
We make changes every year to our, this is one of the few years we're not making changes to the zoning ordinance because we found something that contradicts. What are you talking about?
Well, if we don't adopt the language that's in the state mandate and the RSA, our language is different from that. Now we have contradictory language because we didn't upgrade our regulations to reflect what the state has.
Here's our zoning ordinance. This is what the state has done.
Well, now you're asking a resident to go and do a comparative research at the counter, which Patty would have to help them with, or Lynn,
You can
or
do,
Jody.
you can do a chart that says if you're applying for an ADU, you need to be looking at the provisions A, B, and C on this that comply. Do you see what the state has done to us? This is what they have done, something
Well,
that
that's-
none of us are in favor of, and we're all doing it because, well, it'll be confusing.
Tim?
I was just gonna ask, I think Phil and Barbara both made some valid points. I was just gonna ask to move the vote.
We can do that.
Can I make one brief comment before?
Ask Tim.
Yeah.
Comment and then
No,
we'll, because I know we all want to move on. I wholeheartedly agree with what both Barbara and Phil are saying. My concern, and it's probably biased by experience, is for the staff working in the planning department, how they administer it, and for the confusion of residents coming in who are not used to dealing with a ZBA application, who are not used to dealing with the planning application. We're not talking about the development community here, we're talking about, your neighbor who's trying to put an ADU. They're already confused by the process, and now we come in and we hand them 2 pieces of paper and say, figure it out. I think that part of though I don't like what the legislature has done, I see that part of my position on the planning board is to make sure that our regulations are clearly understood, can be administered by staff, can be interpreted and understood by residents. I don't like these changes, but I think we need to make them for consistency with state law. That's just my thought. But I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Barbara and Phil said.
All right, Tim has moved the question, and I agree with it, so we'll have a vote on, Josh.
I'd just like to make one comment. I agree with you, Barbara, completely. That, this is not something that we as a community want. This is something that's being forced on us. What we're voting on is not whether we support it. What we're voting on is whether or not we put it forward to the community.
We are no, we're not putting it forward. What appears on the ballot is a recommendation from this board that this be adopted. And that's why I'm voting no, because I don't recommend. I am fully confident that staff can do a cross-reference table, and what you just heard from Bruce was, we have half a dozen applications coming in a year that look like they need sort of special attention, and so let's not get carried away with staff resources or that kind of thing. And I'm not going to repeat this argument throughout it, but I would note that the parking change is pretty straightforward.
I get that, but I'm saying the motion was to put it on the ballot as a warrant.
That's the process.
Right. It's not saying, do we support this House bill?
No, the motion
quite
was to put
frankly-
it on the ballot as recommended, and
As
if it wasn't,
recommended.
so that is a recommendation. It's
Yeah.
not wide open.
And the opposite case is put it on the ballot with a not recommended.
Right, because if the motion fails, then a second motion is motion to place on the ballot as not recommended. Most often happens when we get a petition zoning change.
I don't
That's
think
when-
that is how it works. If, I may be wrong, but if this group, the majority says, agrees with you, Barbara, we're not going to put this forward, it just doesn't go.
It doesn't go.
That's right,
It doesn't go at all.
that's right, I'm sorry, that's
So
right.
So
I think we
then,
need 2 motions, a motion to put forward and then a motion on, do you recommend
Whether we
or not?
recommend it or not.
Correct.
Of a motion to
We've never done 2
reconsider.
votes before like
that,
that, but
it's,
what
if I believe if you have it on there, the
it means
assumption
that
is you support it.
you can only not do that with a petition warrant. A petition warrant article, I think, has to appear.
Yes, that's absolutely correct, and you can vote to not support, and you'll still see it.
on the ballot.
Right. Now,
Maybe we could say that the legislature petitioned this article.
just to add, no one has talked about this part yet, but I completely
Oh, God.
agree with the considerations of town staff. I think the stress of having 2 separate things, one current zoning and then this, I think that would be really difficult, but I also think a lot of the cases would be, all right, we have to go to town council. Any case that it would, I think your town council budget would be
would
double,
implode.
tripled.
No, it wouldn't. You copy the new rules on a colored piece of paper, you put it in the zoning ordinance, and you say the blue page is the state rule, and it supersedes the reference provisions that are on the sheet.
All right, this discussion is over.
Making this so complicated.
We're gonna vote on this right now.
Tim moved the question 15 minutes ago.
Mr. Chair, could you restate the question, the ballot, the motion, please?
Motion was to
Put it on the
move
ballot.
this forward. It was by Barbara made the motion and Joshua seconded it.
It was to put it on the ballot as recommended.
That's how it was. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
4
No.
nays,
Dave, nay.
2 nays. Phil, I didn't hear you vote.
I voted aye.
You voted aye?
Yep.
So that was 5-2. No abstentions. Motion passes.
So that shows up on the ballot as
5-2.
recommended 5-2.
Yeah, it shows that a couple of planning board members dissented. Number 2,
The correct planning board.
Come on.
well, now we're acting like the legislature, we're dividing up. I'm gonna get a report on you for from the BIA.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, number 2.
You're getting for funding, you get asked whether you're gonna support bids like this or not, from a
Number
lot of
2.
groups.
Because I know Barbara doesn't want to make the motion, I'll move to move amendment number 2 to the warrant as recommended.
Motion by Colleen,
Second.
seconded by Tim. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll ask for a vote, so I can count votes. All those in favor say aye.
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 5. Nays,
No,
David? Nay.
2. Abstentions. 0. 5-2-0. Okay, number 3.
I move, motion to move amendment number 3 to the warrant as recommended.
Seconded by,
Second.
thank you, Tim.
Begrudgingly.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
please make it 4. Looks a lot better
I
than
mean,
5.
you gotta,
No,
Well,
what are we
hold
here
on.
for, the staff, or what
Are
the
you-
rules are?
Wait a minute, we're not gonna be badgering each other which direction to vote. Otherwise, you can stop voting. So it was 5 yeas, how about the nays?
I don't think
No.
you called, did you call,
Didn't call yet.
you didn't call that one?
Yeah, he did.
Did you?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you got distracted.
I asked for all those in favor,
Oh, I was aye.
and I said yay. Anybody else wanna say yay?
I said aye.
Okay, I got ayes, I got 2, 3,
Just ask for the no's.
Yeah.
No.
4,
Okay.
you're 4, so it's 4 nays,
No.
No.
David? Nay.
4, 3 abstentions. That's the chicken's way out, abstaining. Number 4 is also parking requirement per RSA. All the, motion?
Make a motion that we move amendment 4 to the warrant with recommendation.
Second.
I would, if I could just comment on this, it would be a very easy staff correction to the zoning ordinance by putting in a colored piece of paper. There is no question about this.
I'll just write it in my copy. Scratch it out.
Gosh.
Okay, any discussion on the motion other than Barbara's colored copy paper, things you wanna buy a packet of blue paper?
I'll donate it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's 4. Nay,
No.
Nay.
3-0. Number 5.
Make a motion to move our amendment 5 to the warrant with recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
3, 4. Everybody? Was it,
Aye.
I said yes. I've been beaten down.
Tim, you can vote against this one?
I'm gonna vote against this one.
I think you should have stayed where you're at.
This is the only one I'm gonna vote against.
I'm
Yeah.
voting against it, too.
So we got 5 nays, 2. Tim, you were a nay. Phil, you were a nay.
Always gonna go that.
Why,
0.
why couldn't you stay there?
Wait a minute.
5-2.
5-2-0. Tim and Phil voted against it.
I feel like the voters are gonna be like, what were you
I
guys
think
doing?
I think they should watch this.
I hope that you realize that like where people put thought into these things, so. So I.
Number 6.
I'd like to make motion to move amendment number 6 to the warrant with recommendation.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I'm opposed. Abstentions? Okay, so it's 6-1-0.
He doesn't like the 20%.
I just wanted to be an anti-establishment. And number 7.
Move to move amendment number 7 to the warrant with recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Oh.
One.
Ooh.
Looking
Good job, Bruce.
So, since we voted in the affirmative on all of them, and we didn't change anything, we do not need to have a second public hearing.
Correct.
So the January 8th meeting, if an application comes in, will not be, unless an application comes in, will not be needed.
That's right.
Yeah, you can scratch that.
So,
No, there's still time for an
Yeah,
application to come in.
When's the last time for an
But it's
application?
too late for any zoning amendments.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Even petition.
Correct.
Yes.
How much advance notice did they need for that?
Well, no, can petitions still come in, Sylvia?
No, the
I
deadline
don't
was-
believe so.
The deadline passed.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you would have had to see it tonight.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's what Patty's note was.
That's right.
You know, it'd be really nice if we could get Southern Hampshire Planning to do a study
Oh,
on the statement that all of these legislative actions are gonna create affordable housing for the state of New Hampshire, which is what they have been barking since they started this. And you're gonna find out that there is no affordable housing unless their arm was twisted for, like the city of Manchester twists some of the development once in a
You
while.
don't even have a clear definition of what affordable housing is. so
Right,
limited.
you're absolutely right, I asked that.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Anything else on the list for tonight?
just happy holidays to everyone.
Yes.
And,
Wait a minute, Shelby, you can't leave yet, the meeting's not over.
Oh, so close.
You're very close. I don't see anything else on the agenda, Chair.
So who made the motion, Phil?
Phil always makes the
Who
motion.
made the second, Colleen? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
There we go.
Abstentions?
On, eh?
Motion passes. Thank you. So the meeting is adjourned.